Hey everybody. As you can see up there, and you'll read down below, I got inspired to do this by a certain group of guys on the show. Like I said, I'll provide the link down below so you can find it. But instead of being known as who was better, it's basically what. Well, it is going to have a who's in there, but it's basically who and what was better. And in this case, for this first attempt at this, we're going to look at story arc beginnings and endings. In other words, for animated series. In other words, story arc pilots that are a story arc, and finales that are sort of a story arc. And as you can see up there, the two I'm going to talk about are Awakening and Doomsday. Awakening from Gargoyles, and Doomsday, as in Doomsday Project, from Sonic the Hedgehog SatAM. Now, you got to look at Now, first of all, I'm going to challenge anybody here on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, to respond, even on DeviantArt, to respond and give me their thoughts on which one they thought was better and had a longer lasting effect. And if I do make any mistakes or I miss out on something, let me know, and let me know in your response if you want to do that. But let's take a look at Awakening and Doomsday. Awakening and Doomsday both came out in the same year of 1994. Doomsday came out a few months later. Awakening came out as the movie pilot for the Disney Gargoyles series. Now, let's take a look at Gargoyles first. When Awakening happened and Gargoyles was being developed and being primed for release, and Awakening was made, a lot of effort and hype went into it. As a matter of fact, in selected cities around the country, for one night only, Awakening was shown in its full-length glory, I guess you could say, on movie screens. For one night only, in selected cities around the country. How do I know? Because I was living in Oskaloosa, Kansas at the time, and KCMO 62 basically advertised with the little kid block, if you will, that Awakening was going to be shown one night only in theaters at an AMC theater in Kansas City. Now, as much as I would have loved to go and see that, I couldn't. So I had to wait until it came out as a miniseries, which I did record. And then eventually, I also put onto DVD. But again, Disney put so much hype into this because basically this was, a far cry from what they had done years before. This was a far cry from Gummy Bears. This was a way far cry from Wuzzles. This was a way far cry from Winnie the Pooh. And it was a far cry, if you will, from DuckTales, Rescue Rangers, Darkwing Duck, Goof Troop, Bonkers, and the show that came out around the same year, Aladdin. Far cry. But what was it about Awakening that was so good? What made it so memorable? Well, first of all, the way it was presented. I mean, you look at Awakening, the pilot movie episodes, if you will, for Gargoyles, and you say to yourself, this is a Disney show? This is a Disney product? You wouldn't really believe it unless you researched history and found out that they had done something like this theatrically before with the Black Cauldron. But anyway, you would look at this and you'd say, wow, this is pretty big, this is pretty intense, I wouldn't expect this. And there was a lot of things that happened in that movie, in that pilot, that normally you would have never seen in a Disney, you rarely see in a Disney show. You mean, we saw blood, for goodness sake. We saw a lot of characters, as they would say, getting the axe, even though they were villain characters. I mean, it was basically what this was, Awakening. It basically set the tone for what you were going to get the next couple of seasons. It set the tone for the fact that this was not just, that this show wasn't aimed towards all ages. This was more of a Y7, maybe nowadays, TV PG rated show. And I mean, again, it set the bar. It set the bar for what Disney wanted to do with the show and try to do later on with other shows, even to this day. I mean, you take a look at Tron Uprising. There's a good example there. I mean, they even tried it with Mighty Ducks, but we'll get into that another time. But the thing is, with Awakening, it was so well done that anytime I watch it, anytime it'll come on, if it comes on in its feature-length, uncut version, or even if it's the miniseries and it's in a row, I will watch the damn thing. I will sit down and I will watch Awakening because it's that good. I mean, the plot developments and everything was tremendous. I mean, I like how, like I said, they bring up things that normally you wouldn't think Disney would bring up. I mean, I like how they kind of start out in the modern era, in the modern day, which was about 94, and then they flash back to 1,000 years before, to 994 AD, and kind of tell us the origin there. And I also like how we begin the entire thing. You begin it by seeing some kind of battle taking place up top the Xanatos Tower. You're not sure what's going on. And then the way it begins, it doesn't say Gargoyles right off the bat. It doesn't say Gargoyles right off the bat. No. The first episode doesn't even do the intro. It just says Awakening. And right there you know, wow, this is going to be big. This is going to be good. And every episode that followed that in that story arc pilot was indeed good. You couldn't, there was not one thing you couldn't say bad about it. There was not one thing. I mean, the writing was terrific. The voice cast was great. The animation was huge. The animation was feature-length quality. I mean, when they did the damn sunset in part 1, it was like a real damn sunset coming up. Just like they did in Lion King. But it was that well done. And to me, Awakening set the tone. And this, like I said, the voice cast, great choice, no doubt about it. The story was definitely a set the tone kind of deal. And it definitely set the tone for what was a great show. Because when you look at it, you wouldn't suspect Xanatos would be a bad guy. Well, you probably would, but you wouldn't really suspect it if you were new to the show. You wouldn't expect in the past, in the 994 AD, that the human that was supposed to be the friend of the Gargoyles, or the captain, if you will, would betray them. You wouldn't expect that. Nor would you expect someone like Demona, who got a name later on, I think about part 3 or 4, to become a villain. Right off the bat. You wouldn't really expect that watching the first 2 parts. You wouldn't expect that at all. You wouldn't even think that. You wouldn't even think that, and that's how well done this pilot was. This movie pilot, 5-part miniseries pilot was. It was that well done. And like I said, it set the pace for what was a great show going forward. It set the pace storyline-wise, animation-wise, it set the pace. Yeah, it had its humor with Broadway and Brooklyn and Lexington and Bronx. It had its humor there with them, but it was great. But it worked perfectly. It was the kind of humor that worked within something like this, that was perfectly timed. You can have humor, but you can also have seriousness. It was that well done. And I can't say anything more about it. It was that well done. But then, on the other side of the coin, let's take a look at Sonic the Hedgehog, the Doomsday Project saga, as I like to call it, or a movie, which actually, some may argue, started with the very first episode, Game Guy, where we found out that there was a list of freedom fighters still out there. That there were other freedom fighter groups. But we really wouldn't get into the action, we really wouldn't start getting more into that until later on. When we had what I consider the prelude episode, The Void. That's when things really started to intensify, in my opinion. I mean, Blast of the Past, the 2-part miniseries there, mini-movie as I would call it, I thought was good. It gave us a good idea, sort of a backstory on how everything came to be. But when you take a look at, let's say, The Void, which came a couple of episodes, 3 episodes later or so, it definitely set the tone for what was going to be, as I consider, the Doomsday Project movie, saga, whatever. Because not only did we find out about another villain that was supposed to, become the primary villain in what would have been the third season. Not only did we find out that this villain, Nagus, was supposed to be the original, corruptor, takeover guy, but we also find out within this one episode, the prelude episode, The Void, about the Doomsday Project and the fact that it's so serious. Here is that all the commanders, Robotnik's commanders, are in it. And it's also, the thing about The Void is it set the tone by allowing Sally to literally have the list of freedom fighters handed to her by her father, if you will. Well, actually, she reached into her father's pocket, but literally have it passed down to her because her father, who she finally did find out where he was this whole time, couldn't come back because he and Nagus would get crystallized and die. But again, even with that one episode, it set the tone with the Doomsday Project hit, with the first hearing of the Doomsday Project, as well as the list of freedom fighters finally being obtained by Sally, as well as Ari, a character that was introduced in the first episode, being able to return home safely. But then we get into this project. We get into the Doomsday Project saga itself, and what can I say about this? What can I say other than the animation was tremendous? The episodes flowed perfectly together. There was no doubt about it. I mean, it just was well done, in my opinion. You take a look at the first episode, Cry of the Wolf, or the first chapter, I should say. We get introduced to the Wolf Pack, and to a character that would go on to be in the Archie comic book, as well as become very popular in Loop. And that set the tone. It kind of gave you an idea of what the Doomsday Project was about, what it was capable of, because we saw Doomsday pods being launched all over the planet, or being tested out. So it gave you an idea of what the Doomsday Project was capable of and how dangerous it could be. Now, again, I like this first chapter, as I call it, because it gave us a background on who the Wolfpack was, who Lupe was right within that episode. And again, it also let us know what a threat the Doomsday Project was, because it releases these kind of pods that could literally wipe out everything. Then the following episode, and before I talk about the following episode, I also like how they used this episode to finally get all the freedom fighter groups together to go against the Doomsday Project. I like how they ended with Sonic saying to freedom, and everybody else is cheering to freedom. And I love that. And then we get Droodhedge, which I thought was pretty good. We find out about it. I like how this kind of introduces us to the fact that in the SatAM universe, Nicole was programmed by Sally's father, and only certain programs could be released only when Sally comes of age, which would be 18 years old. I like how it does that. It kind of shows that, yeah, you may be mature enough, you may be a leader and everything, but you're not ready yet to get these secrets. It's like you're not ready to get these secrets, if you know what I mean. So I like that part. I also like how it focuses a lot on Tails, because if you watch throughout the season, the second season, it shows Tails as being trained by Sonic, Sally, Bunny, Rotor, maybe even Antoine, to be a freedom fighter. I like how it all pays off in this episode, and he finally gets to be an official freedom fighter. No more training needed. I love that. I love it because he's the one that comes up with the plan to obtain the first Power Stone. Now, the Power Stones, which we find out, are basically items of ultimate power that put one way could be used for destruction, put another for unlimited power, if you know what I mean. But I like how it allows Tails to progress finally out of that role of being a trainee and into an official freedom fighter, because he's the one that comes up with the idea. I mean, I like it. I like how that works. I really do. And you know, it's just tremendous. The writing's well done, and it's just a tremendous continuation of the saga. To me, it was a great second chapter to this whole thing. And then we get into the third chapter, which was Spy Hog. And this was actually pretty good. Spy Hog, which was before the final chapter, which is Doomsday, I thought was tremendous. Because one, it finally shows that Antoine, even though he's still a coward and a little bit of an egomaniac in the show, can be brave. Because what happens is they're trying to fuel up. They're trying to drain the fuel out of these tankers of Robotniks. And basically what happens is Sally's vest comes loose and she's just like literally hanging. Her feet are hanging almost out in the open. And Antoine's trying to pull up by her belt just long enough so she can reconnect the circuit. And what happens because of that? Later on, Antoine finally gets what he's been working for even in the first season, and that's a kiss from Sally. And what's funny about this is he goes on to tell Sonic, yeah, I did this. And yeah, he over-exaggerates, but he says, yeah, I did this. I saved her. Sonic doesn't believe him until Sally comes around and actually proves him right. And I like how that's very well done. I also like how finally, after all this time, Robotnik realizes, oh shit, I have somebody spying on me from the inside, and then I guess realizes when he finds out it's Sonic's uncle, kind of gets it through, kind of makes him realize, oh, you know, I guess my control over these beings, even roboticized, doesn't last long, kind of deal. So I thought that was great that they finally allowed Robotnik to find out he was being spied on, and basically what it did is it caused Sonic's Uncle Chuck to have to say, yeah, I'm going to stay behind and still be a spy, but I'm going to be more careful this time, or at least try to, by using disguises. And I like that. I really like that part, how it all just comes full circle there. I like how Rhoda finally develops this mechanical pigeon, because they had these mechanical hummingbird pigeons, whatever. Not mechanical, but these real pigeon birds, or whatever they were. Hummingbirds, dragon birds, whatever you want to call them. Always delivering, these kind of like message dubs, or whatever they were, delivering the messages. I like how they just decided to, you know, have Rhoda do away with that and say, okay, we're going to do mechanical wise because they're faster and more efficient and they don't take days, they don't rest or anything like that. So that was good. I like how he's uses, I think it was one of the ships from the earlier episodes that they took down, and a transponder receiver to allow Sally and Bunny into the Doomsday project while it's still under construction and get the information that they need. So I like how that all comes full circle. I like how they developed that in some ways. That was pretty good. Good and everything. I like how that really worked out and how it led in. I also like how, you know, even after Uncle Chuck is captured, you know, I like how Sonic and even Sally and even Bunny, they're trying to say, hey, you're not safe here anymore. You need to come back. And that's when he, like I said earlier, he reveals that, hey, I don't need to if I do this. And it kind of shows you that, you know, that after they leave and everything, that you see the tear, and he says, hey, I know what you guys are saying, but I can't do anything until we're all safe, until everything comes to pass. So after they leave, you see the sadness in Sonic, you kind of see the disappointment and sadness in the girls, and then after they leave, you see that tear coming down, and that was really emotional there, but what was really good about it was you see the thing, because basically what they're doing is they're making the Doomsday Project episode a big deal. I like what they do, they say next week, Doomsday. And I'm thinking, wow, normally you had not seen anything until that. I mean, normally, even with Gargoyles, you didn't see someone say a show ending saying next week so-and-so, or next week such an event. It said, they did it, they said next week, Doomsday. And it was like, that caught your attention. It was like, oh, I got to tune in next week to watch it. And it was that well done. I liked it. I like also how they played Antoine's eagerness, the kiss that he got from Sally kind of going to his head. I like how they kind of have Sonic refer to Sally after Sonic has to rescue Antron after he's captured and almost comes close to revealing everything in all the secrets. Basically has to give Sally sort of a hint as, oh yeah, I'll tell you later about what happened. So I like how they used that in and kind of gave some humorous effect to this episode. I really like how they did it. It was very well done. And then we get to the final chapter, the Doomsday Project itself. And oh my God, what can you say about this episode? It has not been said yet. Very good writing, very good animation, just so well done. I like how it kind of acknowledges the previous episodes. It acknowledges the episode before it, Spy Hog, where Robotnik kind of launches things a week before because apparently he still realizes maybe that Uncle Chuck is still spying on him. I like how he does this because it's going to basically cause the Freedom Fighters to launch early, basically launch their attack early and fall right into his trap. And I love how they do that because it allows Robotnik to know exactly where certain groups of the Freedom Fighters are going to be and capture them. Like he captures Ari and Lou, the two, that bear and that rhinoceros. I like how they gave him sort of a. They basically finally gave him like a step. Basically, they gave him the thought process of being a step ahead now, like saying, "Hey, they were a step ahead of me. I'm going to be a step ahead of them." And it was very well done. I like that. I like how one of the things I do like is how they have the initial group, except for Rotor, Sonic, Sally, Bunny, and Antron, be the ones that go into the Doomsday Machine. I like how they do that. I mean, they do add humor in there too while they're looking around. They do add humor with Sonic being electrocuted or shocked by these two big orbs, and after Sally's asking him if he's all right, he says, "Man, now I know how a bug zapper feels." And you see her laughing a little bit. So they do put the humor in there. They do put the humor in there during a serious situation. And it's really, again, overall, just very well done. I mean, you have Sonic basically telling everybody, hey, you're going to, basically saying, hey, look, our plan is blown. Robotnik knew we were going to fall for this. We were going to come. You know, it's better I face him instead of you guys all being there. And that to me was well done too, because it basically shows that Robotnik can be a step ahead of Sonic too, because he knows Sonic and the Freedom Fighters are going to probably try to blow up like the brain. So he puts it in diamond glass, so he encases it in diamond glass, but also knows that Sonic's going to be there, so he sucks him through a vent into a roboticizer that he built for him. I like how they did that, because it shows that Robotnik can be one or two steps ahead of even the Freedom Fighters and Sonic. So that was really well done. I like how they come up with the solution that the only way to win, the only way to probably beat this thing is the Power Stones, which references back to Druid Hedge. And the ending, and I like how, Sally, tells Sonic, look, you're not going to go alone because you and I are in this together. In other words, confirming to him that I'm not just your friend. We're not just friends, if you know what I mean. We're not just friends, we're more than that. So, and it's like kind of, and I guess if you want to steal a quote from the comic, like issue 124, or issue 125, I should say, she tells Sonic in that issue, wherever you go, I be. If you fall in battle, I'd rather not be anywhere else but there. So that's kind of like, you want to steal a quote, there you go. And it was just tremendously done. I like how, instead of probably deciding, hey, we're going to just blow ourselves up along with this thing and get rid of Robotnik at the same time, I like how they decided, let's just use the ultimate power. Sonic's the one that comes up with this, says, why don't we just use the ultimate power? Why don't we turn them around and use the ultimate power? And that's what they do. And I like how it allows Sally to experience what Power Wings are like and basically experience Sonic's speed, and thus allows them to destroy the Doomsday Machine. I really like that. I thought the animation with that climax was very well done. I like how at the end, when they are happy and are celebrating and they're high-fiving, I like how Sally had, to me, in my personal opinion, is also not only gained some of Sonic's speed, or gained his speed temporarily, but gained a bit of his personality. I like how Sally kind of suggests, hey, and kind of ask the question of, hey, if a high five if the Power Stones can affect a high five like that, I wonder what happens with a kiss. So that was pretty funny in my opinion. But they do end up kissing at the end, and I like kind of Sonic's humorous humorous I like how Sonic kind of shows humor at the end, where he still has his humor, his cockiness a little bit, where he's like, oh, well, no more Robotnik, too bad. Like, he's going to miss fighting Robotnik. Like, he's basically saying, I'm not going to have anything to do now. But then Sally kind of reconfirms, oh, yeah, you'll have things to do because you'll always be the hero to me. So that was pretty good. I know I'm saying pretty good a lot, and I'm sorry about that. But overall, Doomsday was great, and the climate and the cliffhanger at the end was tremendous. I mean, you have Snively, basically, who escaped in a pod, well, not a pod, but kind of an elevator, underground elevator, rise back up and basically is chuckling, is happy that Sonic beat Robotnik, so now he could take control. And I like how he acknowledges, okay, Sonic, now you gotta face me, but guess what? I'm not alone. And in the background, you see these eyes that look like red Sonic eyes, and immediately that catches your attention and makes you wonder, oh my God, what's gonna happen in the next season? Or what's gonna happen next week? It literally grabs your attention right there. And that's why it was just tremendous, in my opinion. Tremendous cliffhanger. Unfortunately, we never got a third season, and we don't know what's ever going to happen with the franchise if they ever decide to revive this show. Overall, when you look at the comparison of both have had long-lasting effects. Both have huge fan bases, cult fan bases, if you will. But it's kind of debatable. It's like, to me, Gargoyles had a lasting effect because, well, essentially their story was the pilot. Their story arc, their pilot was a little longer, and it basically set the pace for what was going to happen. This one, the Doomsday one, set the pace of what would have been, and kind of gave you everything, brought everything full circle, and then left you on a cliffhanger, making you wonder what was going to happen next. So it's kind of, to me, in this first edition of what was better, or who was better, I have to say it's kind of even Steven. So next time I'm going to talk about something that might be a little interesting, might be controversial. But give me your video responses down below. Let me know what you guys think, what was better, which one was better. Video response if you like, I'd greatly appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all later. Peace out, God bless. Comments are welcome down below.